Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ladies Power Lunch. Thank you so much for joining us. I am super excited today. As you guys know, I have gotten a little carried away with human design and just figuring out how human design fits into my life and into my business. And so I have today a panel of just amazing people to talk to us about human design, to talk to us about how their different types, their different human design types fit in with their business and how they've used the information that they have gotten about their human design to actually influence the way that they're actually doing their business. I want to say hi to everybody who is able to join us today. Hi, Lorraine. Hi, Tezra. Hi, Wendy. Wendy, so good to see you twice in 1 week. That's awesome. Hi, Audra. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Jamie. And of course, Lynn is one of our panelists, Andrea is one of our panelists, and Christy is one of our panelists. But I have somebody so special to introduce to us today. It's no accident that he's at the center of my screen. Ladies and other ladies, I would love to introduce you to George. So I'm going to walk around the room a little bit and I am going to ask our panelists to just take a minute to introduce yourselves. And I'm going to make everybody mute.
Oh, he muted you.
Oh, I muted myself.
He
That
muted
was
you.
great. Yeah. So I'm going to mute everybody and then I'm going to ask Lynn to unmute and I'm going to have her start by just introducing herself, telling us a little bit about her type and how she got introduced to human design, and just say a little bit about what you offer to your clients. All right?
Okay. Well, I was recently, Lynn Gallant. Let's just start with that. I am in health, wellness, creating wholeness in people's lives. And recently, during COVID, I was starting to do some inner work. And Christy did a really cool, I think it was an LPL on human design. And I really had to know about it. And I found out that I was a manifestor. And manifestors are about 9% of the population. And I said, I never really saw myself as this type. But as I looked inward, I said, the little idiosyncrasies that were, I don't know, just determining that type. Like we know when we've had enough, we kind of make decisions based on intuition, these things. That's basically who I was, and it was starting to give me permission within myself to act on those things. So I took the definition of this manifestor or splenic manifestor as it's defined and took it a little bit further. And when I found out that I was a 4-6 line, that's when everything kind of exploded. And I said, this is who I am. I'm actually a person who's designed to develop into a person who finally, in my 50s, become who I am. And I have developed into the person who I'm meant to be now through my 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So I have learned through my life to come to be the person who can help people live in wholeness through providing them with solutions that are sustainable to help them live more healthy, fit, whole lives. And through this process, it just made it so much more clear to me. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, Lynn. I mean, I know you so well, so it was there was no doubt in my mind that that was what you are. And then when we had a conversation about your design and you shared that with me. That was just confirming what I had already thought.
But I think
So,
the biggest piece that I didn't say is that it gives me permission within myself to not feel guilty when I know I need to take a pause and I've run out of energy, and it's okay for me because actually it makes me more productive in the long run, and I get better results by taking those breaks and making those decisions like that, and just saying, okay, no, that's what I'm going to do. That's enough. And it works. Just saying, it just works.
I love that, Lynn, and I love that you're living that, because I
Mhm.
know this intellectually, and I see you side-eyeing me, Andrea. I know this intellectually, but do I live it? Not every day. This is the truth. You
And I
guys
have to
know I
thank,
tell you the truth, right?
I thank Christy and Andrea for, I ran through some of their sessions and they helped provide me with the information for me to digest it in a much quicker format rather than self-studying. And it helped me to, adapt it and kind of live it a little bit easier. So thank you.
Awesome. So my experience with human design is that it is a lot. It's a lot to digest. And so I feel like you had it really good because you had Christy and you had Andrea to kind of give you a little hand holding in the early stages. And so, Christy, you're next on my screen. I'm gonna invite you to unmute
Hi
and
there.
um, tell us a little bit about your journey with human design.
Yes, and I will let you know that your folks, listeners can read about it in the upcoming book that Dr. Davia is producing for her transformation event, because I talk about that in the chapter. I talk about how my transformation happened because of human design, and that is a journey I started a few years ago with
So,
a
Christy, I want you to just, because I know you and I love you, but maybe not everybody on the call knows you and loves you the way I do. So, just say who you are and kind of the population that you serve, the people who
yep.
would be interested in coming in to see you.
Yes, and actually it ties to my story. So I'm Christy Sullivan, and I currently am on a mission to help women with their self-care journey and to create certain style of self-care that fits not only their lifestyle but their human design. So my transformation coming into human design, learning about it, actually helped spur my business that evolved this year during COVID. And it's important so much for women and men to be doing self-care, because in human design, and this has been my greatest teacher, the head is not where we make decisions. The head is just for information. The body is where our wisdom resides. The body in human design is where our decision making, whether it's the gut or the feelings or the sacral intuition, is where we need to be. And we do that by practicing self-care. And because of that, I live it, but I also love helping women are my target. And I have a yoga practice, classes, and a membership platform. But I live this self-care every day because it helps me stay aligned in my energy. And I'm a generator. So for me, I have sustainable energy that I need to use every day, and I need to also wait for opportunities. So what do I do while I'm waiting? I'm not sitting on a couch. I'm actually doing self-care or self-work or inner reflection or helping others. And so that's really where I'm at with human design. It's been amazing for me.
Awesome. I I was just curious, how long have you been doing your human design experiment?
I love how you put that. So I started about 3 years ago with my teacher, who many of you know, some of you know, Linda Albright, who actually connected George with Davia. So, and Linda and her partner Michael had done a life coaching program a few years ago that I was part of. That the foundation is human design. So that's when I started. But really, this year has been this full-blown experiment of following opportunities that are coming up, and my career has just transformed because of that.
So you would say that you have seen a change in your career based on following your human design. I love it.
Absolutely, definitely.
I love
Yes.
it. I love it. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to invite you, George, to please unmute yourself. I'm so excited to see you. Oh my goodness. I'm so
Wonderful to be
excited to
here.
meet you. So excited. So let me tell my story and then I'll invite you to introduce yourself. So I have a
Sure.
baby. He is now 6 years old, but in my head, I think when he's 100, I'm still going to think of him as my baby. And it's interesting because I do have two sons. My older son is a manifestor, but my baby is a reflector. And 6 years ago, when he was born, I can truly say I'd heard about human design, but it was nowhere on my radar. And when I met him for the very first time, it was a magical experience. It was so different from anybody that I'd ever met before. I almost felt as though he was talking to me, but not with words, but with feelings. And even now, we communicate in a way that nobody else in our house does, and kind of nobody else in our house understands. So it's so lovely to meet another reflector and to have another reflector in my space. This is just beautiful. So George, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about you.
Well, what a beautiful opportunity to have a young reflector that for you, and I'm excited about your care and nurturing of him. That will be real healing for the world. So, how lucky are we that he ended up in your home? So, my name is George Kansas. With my beloved everything Tracy Trottenberg, Kansas, we lead a wonderful community of heart-centered, spiritually inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. We focus on leadership and communications training mostly. We have historically done live events, and of course, right now we're in that shift along with the rest of the world. Fortunately for us, we had a lot of experience doing impromptu live deep dive retreats with our clients. They're from all over the world, so we got used to doing them online before we had to, you know. So what's exciting about the work we do is, like, everyone here is an example of the kind of person we support. Heart-centered, knowing there's an important voice inside them, knowing that that voice is meant to have a healing for the world, and driven, sometimes even without understanding why, driven to share that voice with the world, no matter the cost. And because that's why we're here. You know, that's why us light leaders or thought leaders or whatever you want to call us, that's why we're here, to use our voice, to use our gifts, to and yes, even the human design. You know, you invited us to share why I'm so passionate about my human design, not because it created such shifts for me, but because it gave me a vocabulary with which to understand. One of my special sauce or secret gifts or whatever you want to call it, is really because I'm a reflector, because I have no defined centers. And if you are familiar with the human design language, that just means my energy centers are clear. They don't have fate in them or a fixed anything in them. Because of that clear, no defined centers, my capacity to hold whatever a client, whether it's an NFL football player or a top level executive, or tend to be leaders. I have what's called the right angle cross of the alpha, which just means that I can hold space for leaders who are holding space for others. So why that's important is because I don't take on anything that I'm holding. If somebody is going through something, I can feel it, I can understand it, I can reflect it back, I can help you sort through it without taking it on. So it's not, so I can literally be there without judgment, holding no shame on you, no blame, and just pure universal love. And it's not mine, it's all of ours. I get to be the mirror. It's such a divine gift to be the mirror of your own love is my greatest fulfillment. And I have seen, again, with like the roughest, toughest NFL linebackers to the most purpose-driven, profit-oriented CEOs or the most heart-centered shaman, I can hold this healing, loving space. And what a joy it is to see, because these are all people I'm passionate about. Their voices are important in the world. And if I can support that, from a rock and roll drummer to a guitar player to an actor to a CEO, if I can hold space for their healing, oh man, that's life for me.
So beautiful. Just
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, George. And of course,
Thank you.
it's intentional that I save the projector for last because I am also the projector. So we have representing, I'm a mental
Amazing.
projector. So I'm from the throat down. I'm, what do you call it? I have centers that are defined in my crown, my ajna, and my throat, and everything else is wide open, ready to reflect all the things. But Andrea is our projector who's going to be talking to us a little bit today. Yep, she actually is. I like to think of Andrea as my librarian because she's that first line, third line. She's the curator of all the information. And if there's something that I'm thinking of that I want to know, I send her a quick text. Andrea, what's the this or what's the that or what does this mean? And she drops in her answers and I'm good to go. So Andrea, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you so much in my circle, and I would invite you to just share with our group the kind of person who might find your services to be helpful.
I have one question first. I didn't catch what profile George is. Your line.
Oh, George, what's your
6'2".
profile?
I'm a 6'2" reflector.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Cool. No problem. It's cool to meet you. So, projectors. Projectors are 20% of humanity-ish, and reflectors are 1% of humanity-ish, and that leaves 9% for the manifestors and 70% of the world as generators of one kind or another. And projectors, it's interesting, I've sort of been tasked with this role of guiding the energy of the rest of the world, mostly the generators, partially a lot of projectors helping projectors move through the world. But what's kind of equally interesting is with the openness that we do have, some of us, we're a wide variety of types, that all aura types projector, but 5 different inner authorities or personal authorities, depending on how you want to frame it. So the people who have charts that say no authority doesn't mean that they don't have any personal authority. It just means that it's not center-based. And there are other methods and processes that they go through to come to their own conclusions. But projectors are this 20% of humanity, but divided up again by 5 times, because each of the authorities is completely different. And if there's anything about human design that's important, it's that everybody learn to tune into their own personal thing and not be influenced by, or recognize when they are being influenced, because we are influenced and conditioned by the world. It is what it is. But to be aware is the difference of when you're making decisions that are body-based versus mind-based, which is where most people make their decisions, is from their mind. Most of the world is not self. And that's what we're all sort of at this crossroads, this intersection of becoming this aware space, maybe. Ideally, it'd be nice if everyone would just, turn the light switch on. But it's an evolutionary process, and we're at the, sort of probably not the very beginning edge, but we're sort of like the beginning of the mass awareness edge of things. And having human design be available to us is just like this game-changing, I don't want to call it a shortcut, but it kind of is a shortcut. We still have to, there's a 7-year actual physical cellular processing that has to happen for things to adjust. And then guess what? There's another 7 years of the next adjustment. But in the interim, as we can notice, as much as we can notice, it supports that process across the board. And if we can help other people who want that, some people don't, and that's okay. If we can support other people in that process, it's huge. So I didn't explain anything about who I am yet, because there is a center in my design. I'm an emotional 1-3 projector. There's a center in my design that is completely open. There's no gates. It's my G center, which is the middle one. It would be yellow if yours is defined. It's a diamond shape if you have your chart. And what it actually does is it kind of has me, I don't want to say I'm being like a reflector, because the aura is completely different. The aura of a projector is penetrating, and it's meant to one-on-one get all up in your business, basically, when there's permission for that. And when there isn't is when we projectors run into problems. Our two sides of the coin are success, meaning recognition, the success of recognition, and bitterness. And that bitterness has hold of a lot of projectors in the world, because we haven't grown up with understanding that recognition piece is important before we do the penetration piece, which we have there's no doing of it. It's just who we are when we're present with somebody else. And if that person doesn't want to be seen that way, it's a big problem.
No, yeah, I get that, Andrea. I mean,
Yeah.
I totally get that. But how I met you was through a group that you lead for projectors in business. So I'm looking forward to, I'm gonna go do another go around, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the do's and the don'ts for the different types in your business. And I'm really looking forward to getting some feedback from you on that. So let's go back to Lynn. Lynn, can you unmute for a sec? So I'm just curious, now that you've been doing your experiment for a couple of months, what has changed in the way that you do your business as a manifestor?
I don't force things. I do things as they flow to me through intuition, through how I feel, not how somebody else tells me it should be. And I guide myself through like scheduling myself and allowing enough time for rest and regeneration. I can't overbook myself. It just doesn't work. And I have to allow for spaces for breathing and for just absorbing and for sitting back and thought, so that everything can kind of come together. So a meeting and then sit back, think, process. Was that right? It's definitely, everything's more of a process than it is do. Does that make sense?
I like that, Lynn, because I think that because generators tend to be about 70% of the population, there really is that just do it kind of mentality in the whole world. Like, get it done, just do it. And even generators need to have some downtime too. So having this idea that giving yourself that rest, giving yourself that space in your day it's sort of groundbreaking and mind changing, even though it seems like it's such a small change.
and everything's more procedural, I would say. I sit back and really say, okay, how is this going to happen? Do I need to do this? You know, it's evaluative. It's definitely thought out on a better level. Do I need this in my business? Do I need this in my life? What's the best thing to do? And then I take a deep breath and say, nope, this is what needs to happen. It's okay. This needs to be put off. It's not stress related. It's because I realize now that's what needs to happen in the process. I don't worry about why it can or can't happen now. When in the past I may have been like, but, this is happening and I'm going to miss out. Well, no, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So the whole mindset around the business and the life is completely different in the approach, because the day-to-day has changed and the week-to-week has changed and the scheduling has changed.
And yet you haven't noticed that there is an improvement in your business as a result of noticing
absolutely.
your human design.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I love that. So Christy, give us that sweet, sweet generator perspective, because about 70% of the people who are watching us today, they're probably going to be generators. So how can they be best in their business?
Yes, a majority are generators. And what's important that you noted was we're taught to just go do it, push, make things happen. And actually, generators, our strategy should be wait for opportunities. And that sounds so, 180 degrees from that mentality that we have. At the same time, I want to point out generators have this energy that we like to work, we like to be busy, but it's so important that we're doing the right kind of work. We want to be in the right kind of job with the right kind of people. And I can say from personal experience, that's when we know that we're putting out the energy in the right kind of way and following those opportunities, because if it lights us up, then those are the opportunities that we do need to follow through on. So people will say to me, as I guide them through human design and help them understand what their type is, they'll say, well, what am I supposed to do while I wait? And you can still be busy. I look at it personally that if you're not doing things like taking care of your business, and I think of it as almost like organizing or decluttering or doing things that just keep you busy but help you prepare for the opportunities that are coming. And I can tell you one example. Like, so many times I've cleaned out my filing cabinet and all of a sudden new clients will show up. And actually, to be quite honest, I cleaned out my office in December. In January, I found out my job was changing and it was leading me to a better place. So like, those are the kind of things that you want to stay busy with. The self-care I talked about, that internal reflection. So like Lynn was saying, we still need our downtime, but for generators, it's more of a active downtime. You might find yourself doing things that just are, your hobby, but we wait, and when the opportunities show up and they're the right ones, then that's where your focus and attention is, rather than trying to pursue things and force things to happen. That's not what our energy is meant to do.
I like that you are reminding us that the generator is not here to force things to happen. I think, again, going back to that, we're just a big Nike commercial today, going back to the Nike suggestion that we just do it. There is no type, I don't think, that should ever just do it, right? Because for the manifestor, even though the manifestor, like my 10-year-old son, is making things happen, he drives me crazy when he doesn't inform me first. So you gotta inform. But also, me knowing that he's a manifester, I give him a little bit more grace than I probably would have before learning about human design. With my generator husband, oh my gosh, he's always on, he's always going, going, going. And at the same time, he can't just go do it. He has to wait for the invitations to come in. And I'm hoping I'm invited since I'm his wife. I'm just reminding him to respond to things as opposed to just going and doing things. And would you say that that idea of responding actually helps your business?
Yes, definitely, because this is the way I see it. It's a little bit like what Lynn said, just being in the flow. When you're in the flow of life and all of a sudden you meet somebody, like I'm meeting George for the first time and now I want to connect to him. That's an opportunity that showed up, that thanks to Davia. But those are the kind of things, to be in your life, to be present, to be focused on what's going on around you, and just to notice those opportunities. It's helped in my business because I, as much as I'm a generator, am working less than I used to. I feel like I'm working less hard. And that's what I mentioned that book again, because I was taught, especially from Eastern European family, work hard. You need to, especially people will say now, you need to fail. That gives you the lessons. And yes, in a sense, but why are we working so hard? If we were all working hard, then wouldn't we all be rich and paid off well and have the payoffs we were looking for? That's just not happening because I think we're overworking ourselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are overworking for sure. And I think that might be part of the thing that's holding us back. This was a conversation that Andrea and I were having, was it yesterday or maybe the day before? So let me hop on over to George. And George, tell me a little bit about how finding out that you are a reflector has influenced your business.
Well, like I said earlier, at first it was really a really beautiful vocabulary to understand what I kind of already knew. I already knew and had built a career around the idea that my presence is my currency, that my ability to be with someone and like really with them, really with you without, I'm not checking my phone and I'm not checking my email and things like that. Just really be with you, because the magic happens when I'm not trying to do anything. When I'm just very recently, an example, a thought leader in the masculine space, the self-expression space, called me out of the blue. His dear friend of mine, just talking, just having a social conversation, but me being me, just present and listening. And I felt deep sadness in him as he was preparing to do this big launch. And without anything on it, I just started reflecting to him what I was feeling and just made myself completely available to let this flow through me. Started crying my face off. Like, I wasn't feeling sad, but this emotion was just running through me, which gave him permission in a world where he has no opportunity to go to that place, and moved huge sadness out of his system. And we pinpointed exactly where that came from. His launch that he, like, literally that week, was his most successful launch ever. He showed up in ways that he had never given himself full permission to show up as, and his people responded to him. That has been the biggest way I have purposefully made that a part of our business. For when I make myself available to be truly present for our clients, we can go to places, because again, there's no capacity problem on my side. So we can go to places where they would never have had an opportunity to go. And letting that flow creates opportunity. It's the resistance, what we resist persists. And so we have an expression here, Tracy and I: don't fake it till you make it, feel it to reveal it. And so by allowing ourselves to feel those emotions without judgment and let it flow through, and holding the space for that to happen, and facilitating it, like, you know, I'm a guide. I've got the flashlight, I've got the map, and we'll get you through it fine, you know. And that's probably the biggest, by creating opportunity to you know, putting systems in place and practices and disciplines so that when I step in front of you, I can be fully present. That's my part of the business, so to speak. And because my wife is a generator, and between the two of us, you know, we put things in place in our partnership and in our business to allow our best, you know, our best versions of us to show up. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think it's really lovely that you have that generator reflector partnership. Feels like that's the perfect business model. So everybody, if you're a generator, go find yourself a reflector.
Well, we like to make sure that we have one of everything in our team at all times,
Mhm.
because the projector, that ability to really be like, hey folks, this is what's going on. And I mean, I could say that all day long, but the projector seems to have that ability to bam, just put it right out there. And the manifestors, God bless them. What would the world be without manifestors? And so yeah, I mean, it's it's also such a big part of my philosophy, is that the human design just points out how important it is that we recognize our interdependence. My well-being depends on yours depends on mine. It's absolutely that we are an organism as much as a race, you know, as much as a species. And so yeah, that's how
beautiful, George. Thank you so much. Andrea, I'm trying to unmute you, but if you give me permission. Thank you. So, Andrea, you are in a space where a lot of the times you are able to give guidance to projectors who have businesses. And if you had to give us as projectors one piece of solid advice, just as a group, when we're running our business, what would that be?
Become a ninja question asker. Except if you're talking to manifestors, don't ask them questions. Just inform them.
Just inform them. I know. Oh, my 10-year-old, I swear, I have, I think, before I even learned anything about human design, I had become a good asker of questions. And I find that does not work well with my 10-year-old.
No.
He's not about it.
Yeah, inform manifestors, which is, as Lynn was saying, is completely different from telling. It's not a telling, it's an information packet that you can deliver and leave it with them to do with what they will. But yeah, and there's different kinds of questions. So for the generators, there's a yes/no skill set that you can build in question asking for best results, I guess you would say. And then for people who, and it's not every question is that way. It's there are things that you can ask that leave people with introspection, and there's things that you can ask that let people arrive at their own conclusions, whatever they are, whether they're your where you would be taking them or not. But the point is that you can become an asker of questions that act as points of transformation for people. And it's amazing when it like light bulbs pop for people. It's amazing.
No, you're absolutely right about that, because I find, and I shy away from, you know, that one-on-one that George talks about. I shy away from it probably because, one, you do feel the emotions of the other. You don't, Andrea, because you have a divine emotion center, but you do feel the emotions of the other, and you can find yourself, you're perfectly having like the best day ever, and then suddenly you're in tears talking to the other person. It's really, really interesting. When you were talking about that, George, totally identified with that. But asking the questions, being able to ask the
Let
question.
me add one caveat to that, because
Sure.
it's the part that gets skipped over, and this is the part where the bitterness part flows freely on both sides, is there has to be, he's laughing, there has to be an invitation, but it's don't get too hung up on the word invitation as much as the projector side feeling correctly recognized is the important piece. So somebody can be asking you for guidance but not really mean they want that. You need to know that that's what they want, and what it is that you're about to deliver will land well, because if it doesn't, you'll be bitter. And if you're saying something that they're not ready to hear, they'll be bitter, and there's backlash and there's chaos and there's a mess. So recognition is probably item number one, and then after that you become this ninja question asker, and you're golden.
Yep. I like that you mentioned the recognition, because it's like
Well,
you're reading my mind, because
that
that
is
was the
huge.
next thing I was going
The
to
main
ask
piece.
you about. I was going to ask you about, the invitation, because guys, it doesn't have to be gold embossed with a knight on a white shining horse coming to deliver it to you. Invitation can really show up in different ways, but it's that recognition piece that makes all the difference. And you're right. I'm here in practice, and sometimes there are patients who walk in the door. So there's that implied invitation that they're inviting me to be their physician. But when they walk in the door, I can feel whether that recognition is there or not. And I can make a decision in that moment whether this is somebody that I would like to have as a patient, because if the recognition is not there, their healing is also not going to come through. I can promise you that with great certainty. And so I would say, for those of us on the call who are projectors, focus in on whether or not that recognition is present. I could not agree more with you, Andrea, about that. All right. Well, I think we are way over time, but I knew this was going to happen. I knew this day would come. So I'm just going to do a last little run through, and I'm just going to ask you guys to come up with your words of wisdom for your type. If you have something that you think that, manifestors should really know, or if you have something that you think generators should, if they do nothing else, if they take nothing else away from this call, this is the thing that they should focus on, then let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap up. So Lynn, let's go over to you and tell me the number one takeaway for all our manifestors. I'm writing it down for my son.
I'd say, well, it's a twofold. Listen to your intuition and really try to inform. Like, chaos happens when you don't inform, and I've done that before, because you're so driven to action when you get that mindset of, oh, I know what to do. Just inform those around you that you know what you're doing and you're going to go do it. Kind of like you said, your son, I did that back when I was younger. I just go do, and then it would scare people around me. What are you doing? So it's really important to do the information.
Yep, because I would not have been mad at him for being next door on the neighbor's zip line, but oh my goodness, he didn't say a word, and so I was frantic, things like
that.
There's
just such an intuition of knowing that there's a drive to just go do, and if you're in that state of knowing, you don't always think to inform. But that's such an important piece for the inclusion and just the knowledge of everybody else. So
I would say if I was to give manifestors advice, which nobody asked, but us projectors, we're just always sticking our noses where nobody
asked. I'd love to hear your advice.
My advice would be the thing that you said earlier, to be sure to appreciate that you're not a generator. And so the energizer bunny behavior is not necessary. That's not you. That's not your type.
Oh, well, that's a given, because you'll fall apart.
Yes.
You will fall apart.
And then you'll have to come see me, which is fine, but I'd rather you not.
Yeah. Well, Christy, you can hear that in my story when I tell mine.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that with great anticipation, Lynn. Christy, tell us, generator wisdom.
So the Energizer Bunny really needs self-care too. That's just my mantra, and that applies, I think, to every type. It's about getting into your body, but especially for generators, make sure you connect to your gut, to the sacral wisdom. That's an aha, You ask yourself yes, no questions, and then you respond with or and get out of the head. It's that type of question asking is from the gut. So that is the one thing I want to touch on that we hadn't yet. So that's for generators specifically.
Yes, listen to your gut, generators.
Anything else you would like to add to that, Dr. Kazia?
Oh, Lord, thank you for the invitation. Yes, I would say generators, do what you love. Make sure that in the doing, that the thing that you're doing is what you love. Because I see it with my husband. Like, he will burn completely out if he's working at something that is not making him happy. There is no joy. But if he's doing the thing that makes him happy, he could work a whole week in a row without a break and he'd be just perfectly fine. So look for what brings you joy would be my advice. But that would be advice to everybody. So I don't know. George, tell us, how can we all be better reflectors?
Wow. Well, there's three pieces, one of which is probably really particular to reflectors. I would say that you do whatever needs doing in your life to keep your reflective surface clean. And what I mean by that is, and this is where it sort of relates to the other two that relate to everyone, is that the self-care, it's not selfish, it's absolutely critical. And that the discipline that might feel like work to put the things in place in your life to give you the freedom to keep your reflective surface clean, that discipline is self-care in advance. And so really take that on as part of your purpose is taking good care of yourself. As a 2-time leukemia survivor, I know the real value of self-care, like life-saving value of self-care. And so I'm totally an advocate of that. And the other piece for everyone is, and you said it, Doctor, about doing what you love. I'm an advocate, and of course this depends on your belief system, but I'm a real stand for everybody, the women we work with, the men we work with, everybody, to engage in your life and your life's work as though you traveled for 10,000 years to get to do it for 100. And if you look at life that way, you really take on how important your voice is. And now more than ever, being called to lead is a divine imperative. It's a universal imperative. This time now is screaming for the leader in all of us to step into the new paradigm, leading in the new paradigm. That's our program right now, new paradigm leader. When you have a voice inside you that the world will benefit from, now more than ever, at such a time as this, you're being called up. So take care of yourself and do it as though you traveled 10,000 years for the opportunity to do it.
So I'm going to just take that, put that in my back pocket, and I'm going to dust that off and use it a whole lot. So if you've had it copyrighted, send me a check, send me a bill. Well, you can send me a check too. Andrea, my dear friend, I invite you to give us your projector wisdom. What's your last word for projectors?
So it's interesting that self-care is a common theme here, especially for the non-sacral folks, but also for the sacral folks. It's just a general across the board thing that goes hand in hand with being ourselves. So my sort of umbrella brand is doing business as yourself. I do have a corner of it that is very projector specific because it has been a need that arose and I have stepped in to meet it. We have a membership for that. But one of the things that came from doing that is a a thing called, I call it my human design mission statement. It's a standalone product that lets us look at our basically the sun conscious piece of our design and pull some information from that and other parts of our design to kind of understand what it is that people would potentially be coming to us for. And mine happens to be selfish self-care is that gate. It's 27-1. So, but that aside, the thing that projectors that we haven't mentioned yet, and it's non-sacral folks in general, and I don't think this applies to sacral folks, and Christy can counter it if it needs to be, but it's really important for me as a projector and for everybody else that I've spoken to that are projectors also, when they don't realize this is a big aha, that you recognize that your uptime that then costs you downtime, they're part of the same package. So the downtime is completely important to the uptime. If you don't do the downtime, the uptime can't happen. If you don't do the uptime, the downtime is kind of, there is this like spinning nothingness that's going on, really. But they're a package, so they go together. It's not like you can only do uptime and then curse yourself on the downtime. The downtime is critically important to making the uptime possible. So there's an addition to the go get some rest, projector friends. Rest and rest some more.
I love that you said that, Andrea, because I feel like with our go society, there is not permission that is given to taking that downtime. But when you really realize that the downtime and the uptime go hand in hand and you cannot have one without the other, they're inextricably linked. When you not only intellectually, but you embody that, then that's when I think you're living your best design. Guys, we could talk about this for hours because
Andrea, we're telling Dr. Davia she needs a nap right now.
Yeah, everybody knows this. I preach it to everybody, and do I take my own advice? Not so much. So I'm aware. There are a ton of questions in the Facebook group. Can I ask a favor of all y'all? George, I'm going to tag you on the Facebook group so you can go in there too. And what I'm going to ask you to do, Lynn, George, Andrea, and Christy, just go in and answer the questions that have been popping up, because people have questions and they want to be in touch with you guys. And I feel like you guys are going to be the leaders on this to help each different type to just live the best way that they can. And I love that you think that we have been basically waiting 1,000 years to spend this 100 years in this space, because I feel that way too. And let's make the best of this 100 years that we have.
Yes.
Awesome, guys. If you haven't yet registered for Ladies Power Lunch Fall Conference, I invite you to do so. If you're a manifestor, then I'm just letting you know it's out there. The tickets are there. If you are a generator, would you like to come to our fall conference? And if you are a projector, I invite you to come to our fall conference. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. I'll see you guys at 1 for Free Gift Friday. Awesome. Great job, guys.
Thank you, Doctor.
Love it.
Well done. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, ladies. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.